Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Guys Who Stare at Stats. Cade Kennedy with you, alongside Tyler Riggs, as we make our way to the West region of the March Madness. I mean, it's hard to believe that it's here once again, but of course, if you already saw our East video, a lot of fun there. You know, obviously, going to disagree a little bit, and you said that might be your calmest bracket yet, Tyler, so I'm a little concerned to see what's going to happen. So, I guess we'll just get into it with the one we'll probably agree with the most, North Carolina taking on Wagner. If you picked Wagner, I'm going to have serious concerns about you. You know,
okay.
We'll find the nearest mental institution to go put you in, but North Carolina, a 24.5-point favorite over the Seahawks. Congrats to Wagner, though. They won their first ever tournament game yesterday as of when we're recording this on Wednesday night, so good to see them get a win, but unfortunately, you've got to run into one Mr. R.J. Davis, and that's never fun to play against.
No, and that's entirely the difference there. It's back to one of these games where it's not who wins, it's do they cover. And for North Carolina, they may very well cover in this one. Just going to probably outrace Wagner pretty easy. I wouldn't say cruise, but, you know, it's just North Carolina team that is doing what they need to right now and trying to reclaim some of that old glory. I remember, man, back in the day, just when you were wee young and Cade, remember the days of Tyler Hansbrough, watching that live, that history for the Tar Heels, and now it seems like we're really far away removed from that, and North Carolina's trying to get back.
You sound like my cousin talking about the days of Psycho T and all of them, but
by the way, quick update live while we're doing this, Grambling has forced overtime against Montana State. They lead 76-73.
Well, there you go. That was a Grambling team you talked about. You thought would get the win over Montana
State. They would roll Montana State. Montana State put up a good fight.
OT game, but we'll have to see. That brings us to the 8-9. This is when we started to differ last time. Michigan State, the 1.5-point favorite over Mississippi State. So what will it be, Tyler? Are we going to disagree again or not?
It depends. Do you trust the tournament merchant, Tom Izzo, or do you not?
I do. I trust Izzo in this one. That's literally what I have in my notes. I just wrote Tom Izzo. That's all you need to know. When he gets to March, when we get to March, he is a different coach. We've seen Michigan State, especially the past few years, not as talented as some of those other teams, but still finding ways to pull rabbits out of a hat sometimes and keep on going.
Well, unfortunately for Izzo, there's no rabbit in the hat this year because, as the old saying goes, you can put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. I don't care how good of coaching you have. I don't see it for this Michigan State team. Other people do. You're not alone. There's a lot of people saying, hey, similar to what we talked about with BYU, where analytics are driving kind of this popularity for Michigan State. I'm not there on it. Mississippi State has been fantastic defensively towards the back half of the season, beat Tennessee in the SEC tournament. That's not an easy team to take down, and they've held star players, more importantly, to bad performances. I like this Mississippi State team. They got a bona fide star, Josh Hubbard, averaging 26 points in the team's last 7 outings. That's not just, hey, I'm putting up 15. No, he's going out there and getting buckets. So you talk about that plus the defense. I don't think Michigan State can handle it. I think they get overwhelmed by the Bulldogs.
Well, there you go. See, this is actually funny for me because this is a predicament where I didn't think Michigan State should make the tournament anyways.
but
now that they're here, there are certain coaches, Jim Boeheim was exactly like this at Syracuse at the end.
Until he was, though. Is this the end for Izzo?
I don't think it is, though. I don't think it is. Tom Izzo hasn't gotten to that point where Michigan State has fallen off. Yes, they've fallen off if you look at, top 5, top 10. Obviously, we can look at that there when you start the season losing to James Madison. But I still think this is one of those principles where you have to pick it until it doesn't happen. And as far as I'm concerned, I still haven't seen that drop-off yet in March. Michigan State's going to get at least one win.
Not having it, Coach.
You don't think so?
Izzo's done.
You think
He's
so?
He's entering the Boeheim Golden Years.
Okay. Well, we'll just have to agree
He'll be an analyst by next season.
Okay. Well, guess what? We're about to agree to disagree a whole lot more because we're going to St. Mary's and Grand Canyon. St. Mary's, if you remember last year, I love watching St. Mary's. They are an absolute anomaly to watch. If you hate watching Virginia, you're probably going to hate watching St. Mary's too because they play the exact same style of basketball. Here's the difference, though. St. Mary's will score at least more than 42 points in a tournament game. I can almost guarantee you that. They're playing Grand Canyon, who's an athletic team. They are a fun, fast team to watch. They've got some great dunkers. If you enjoy watching some high-flying basketball, Grand Canyon is a team for you. But They play St. Mary's, who wants to slow things down. They're a good defensive team. They've got Aiden Mahaney, who's a fantastic player to watch. He only averages about 13, 14 a game. Don't let that fool you, though. Yeah. He's a good passer as well. They have the bigs. They have the defense. And St. Mary's, when they get in that mode, they can cause problems. They were able to shut down Gonzaga a few times this year. They were able to play good defense on just about anybody out the West Coast Conference.
And you know what's funny? As much as I wanted to select Grand Canyon and just bubble it in because of all the reasons you just mentioned, I trust the defense the same areas. I think this year's different for the Gales. They kind of have that feel. They, got at least that one win on Gonzaga, the big one, and have kind of, I would say, claimed top dog of the West Coast Conference. I mean, you got to do it multiple years. But they kind of feel like, okay, we're starting to take control. And it just seems like some of those issues, some of those little small weaknesses that they had last year, they got exposed. They shored up a little bit in various ways. You still play that style. We know it's successful. No matter how bad Virginia looked, they were not operating with full gas, if you will. St. Mary's has kind of elevated themselves to the point where I just could not pick against them, at least for the first round. I think they do enough to get past Grand Canyon, but it will be a good game. That will be one that will have you on your toes, and I wouldn't be shocked if Grand Canyon overwhelms them, but at the same time, I think in the end, St. Mary's is kind of ready for the moment.
And that's where I'm at. I think St. Mary's, this is one of those. Grand Canyon is, man, you want to pick them, but St. Mary's is just one of those teams that you look at the analytics and you look at what St. Mary's is able to bring defensively. You look at all their stats. Even though they've been banged up most of February, they've adjusted to it. They have the 2 wins over Gonzaga. Yeah. They have all of that going for them. I like the Gales. Simple as that. I think this is what they do. They're going to win that first-round game. Second round usually leaves a lot to be desired. We'll see, because they would have to play the winner of Alabama or Charleston. If you love three-point shooting, this is the game for you. These are two teams that love to absolutely stroke it from just about anywhere on the court. They're not the greatest defensive teams either, though, Tyler.
That being said, it's just crazy to see what Alabama's done, right? Because in no way in modern-day analytics should a team that ranks as worse as they do defensively back in the 110s be anywhere near here, but they backed it up with the third best offense in the country, at least according to Kim Palm, and that's doing it at a high volume, right? They're going out and putting up NBA scores sometimes on people in terms of breaking that triple-digit mark. So that's wild to see. And then you get to the other side of it with Charleston, like you mentioned, kind of a similar deal. They're worse defensively than Bama. They're back about the 170s. Offensively, not as prolific. So this is just going to be a boat race. And because of that, similar to the St. Mary's Grand Canyon matchup, as much as I want to root for the chaos, I got to go with Bama. Just in the first round, at least get past there.
And that's where I'm at. I think Alabama gets the win over Charleston. It'll be a back and forth. You mentioned those NBA scores. This is one of those. Alabama could drop 90, and it doesn't surprise you. They could just casually do that now. What Nate Oates has done, with this offense has been absolutely fun to watch. I mean, he's just a great coach. There's a reason why he just got that buyout of basically $15, $16 million, whatever it is, one of the most expensive buyouts you could think of in college basketball. Alabama's a fun team to watch. It would not surprise me if they went on a bit of a run.
Well, I don't know if I can trust that with the defense. We'll get to that later.
Okay. We'll just have to wait and see, get to the bottom part of the bracket, because now Clemson and New Mexico. You don't see this often. New Mexico actually favored over Clemson. I mean, what Richard Pitino's been able to do with the Lobos. They had the big run through the Mountain West tournament. A lot of people thought they were in anyways. Selection committee disagreed, but New Mexico got to be one of those big 5 bid thieves on Saturday just Saturday. Nothing really on Sunday. But New Mexico, I think this is more of a not New Mexico and how talented they are. And trust me, they are a talented squad. But how low everyone is on Clemson. I think that's where it is. Clemson's a 6 seed, and no one really believes that they're a 6 seed.
They're not even
or a 7 or an 8, and maybe not even a 9.
They should be a 10 seed at best. I mean, they really should. And with that, it's going to look like an upset. But as you mentioned, New Mexico the favorite, and for good reason. Not only do you got Richard Pitino, the next gen, right, from Rick there, you got Jamal Mashburn Jr. Oh, man, some of y'all are feeling old out there watching this one. But they're a fun team, and they've, what a better draw to get a Clemson team that, quite honestly, is average most of the time. They're mediocre. They've got some moments where they have played well throughout the season. That's why they're in the tournament. but their resume does not scream 6 seed to me. It screams more about, that 10 seed range, maybe a 9-8, somewhere in there. But, I mean, they're just too inconsistent. I think this New Mexico team is playing good ball.
I agree. I think New Mexico gets the win here. It's one of those weird, technically would be classified, the NCAA says an upset is 5 seeds or more, but New Mexico's favored in this one. So we get the rare double upset in a tournament game, Tyler, where someone is going to be upset no matter what, whether it be seeding or by what Vegas determines is the line. So you don't get those often in a tournament game, so cherish those. And then the next one here, Baylor and Colgate, the 3-14. Baylor 13.5-point favorites in this one. And Baylor's one of those weird teams that they don't really have that dominant score. They have 6 different players in double figures. Baylor really loves to spread it out. Colgate, they have the ability to put up numbers at times. If you remember some of those Colgate teams the past few years, they've had the ability to have some great shooting. But again, if they get cold in any way, saw what they did against Bucknell, having to rally back in a lower-scoring Patriot League game, they can have some problems here. We'll see what they can do against the Bears.
I think ultimately the athleticism wins the day for Baylor in this. I do think Colgate keeps them honest. I mean, that spread's a little high maybe, but Colgate just doesn't quite have enough firepower. Good team, good mid-major team, needed a different draw. Needed somebody more like a Clemson to be able to really pull off the upset. Baylor's not the team you wanted to play for Colgate. That being said, this Baylor team isn't quite as I would say threatening as maybe years past, right? They could be had. I think there may be a touch rated as a 3 seed, but in this matchup, won't matter. Baylor's got the better athletes. They'll get Colgate.
And then we move on to another one. I think our main disagreement so far been on 8-9s and 7-10s. And I think we're going to disagree again here because Nevada, 1.5-point favorites over Dayton. The whole conversation with people this year has been the Mountain West has been they've been lower seeded than they should. A lot of people were like talking about Nevada being a 10 seed when they should be maybe, an 8 or maybe even a 7 like that. But Dayton struggling a bit. 5-4 in their last 9, wobbled into the A-10 tournament, had a bit of a rough stretch there. This will be fun to see, though. Can the Flyers beat the Wolfpack is the question. Or is, Nevada's favored in this one. Can the 10 seed pull out a win?
Before I give my pick, I think this right here is the best game of this bracket in round 1. I mean, this should be a fun one. Deron Holmes the second for Dayton. 20 points a game, 8 boards, 2 blocks. He could also stroke it from deep. For Nevada, you're talking about Jared Lucas putting up nearly 18 a game. He could stroke it from deep. Nevada down the stretch, 10-1 in its final 11 regular season games, making 42% of their threes, top 15 defense. And Dayton, I think, is playing some good ball as well. So all the projections of this being a close, tight game should match up. And it's kind of one of those situations where you hate to see one of these teams go. But give me the Wolfpack. Just in a bit of an edge, I trust Nevada. Not to roll, but to keep it close the entire time and just kind of pull away a little bit with those free throws. That 7-point win where if you just look at it, you go, oh, okay, well, Nevada kind of controlled. No, it was back and forth. They just found that last little push. That's how I'm picturing this game in my mind. Give me the Wolfpack.
This is one of those, and you mentioned it. This is going to be, one of the, what do you say, top 3, but it's not 3 or 2.
Right.
One of those kind of fun ones.
Yeah.
I agree with you. In this bracket, in the West, this will be the best game of the first round. I like Dayton, though. As much as I sound hypocritical from what I talked about, the consistently inconsistent, I think Dayton sometimes, though, you get these teams where they can wobble enough that you catch them on a good day, and Dayton's got not only a good shooter from 3, the best shooter from 3 in the entire country, Kobe Bray. Think about a guy who shoots 49% from 3.
That's outstanding.
That is, that's unheard of. You don't ever have any shooters like that. You already mentioned it with, Darren Holmes with what he's able to do. I like Dayton in this one, barely. It'll be a close game. It wouldn't shock me if this was one of those last-second buzzer beaters we talk about for the next 5-10 years. Maybe I'm just a little bit upset that we never got to see Obi Toppin in a tournament game, but I like Dayton in this one.
My problem with them, the last point with them is down the stretch, they had some games where they blew a second-half lead.
They did.
Couldn't close it. That concerns me going into the tournament, especially against a Nevada team that should be able to match up really well with them. Nevada, as I mentioned, playing hot down the stretch, so that's where the momentum factor, we talk about that a lot, kind of takes over for me to just give that edge to Nevada.
Let's talk about one we agree with. We have to talk about
Do we? No,
the story of the I mean, unless you want to go and call the greatest upset of the tournament, probably in the first round. Arizona, 20.5-point favorites over Long Beach State. And this is one of those weird ones where, you'd think the storyline would be Arizona with what they've done this season. It's not even close.
Yeah.
It is not even close. When you have Long Beach State, two things about them, and I'm going to bury the lead here for a very important reason. Number one, they're called the Beach, and that is absurdly funny to me that they are the Long Beach State Beach. That is funny enough. But then you have a coach who has been fired, but then wins the Big West tournament, and Long Beach State is in with a coach that's been fired. And I don't even know how you comprehend that. Like, what do you do now if you're Long Beach State after this? What do you do if you somehow pull the upset of all upsets and win? You fired this guy. What are you doing here?
Yeah, and if I'm him, Dan Monson, I'm saying, well, hey, you better pay me, boy. Pay me. Because you already look like a dummy. Egg on your face if you're Long Beach State administration. And then he had his press conference today, so if you're watching this on YouTube back, this was Wednesday before the tournament got underway as far as the big first round. Need to go watch his press conference. He opened up with, hey, I'm working for free this week, so I don't have to answer any of these questions. I mean, said that straight up, jokingly, of course, just was really loose, had a good time, even admitted, like, after he got the news that he was parting ways or that they had mutually parted ways, essentially fired him. He joked with the guys watching film the next day saying, hey, we didn't close out here. Those are plays that gets a head coach fired. And they all, they just rolled, right? So the atmosphere, the mood for Long Beach is in a really good spot. In these types of situations that does not happen, that's why people are probably going to be pulling hard for Long Beach. The problem for them is Arizona is one of those 7 teams we've talked about back on the east side where it's, they meet the KenPom metrics for what's been at a 90% clip, the championship decider, if you will, for the last 24 tournaments where they're very good in terms of offense and defense, according to the KenPom efficiency. It's just too much for Long Beach. It's a fun story. You hope the best for the guy going forward, but Arizona's going to roll.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. And I'll get to my, not gripes with Arizona, but kind of what I could see as their downfall later on. This is not the game where it's going to happen for. As much fun as I think Long Beach State, we talk about who's going to be America's team for the tournament. That's always a fun question. Yeah. You got to be rolling with a guy who got fired and is just here for fun now, basically. A very loose. The vibes are immaculate, so to speak. But Arizona's going to get the win here, unfortunately, for what I think should be the team everyone's rooting for this year. But that will move us to the second round now. Of course, we're going to be looking at my picks on the screen. Tyler, of course, will give his as we disagree, starting with North Carolina versus Michigan State on my side, North Carolina versus Mississippi State on your side. Do we disagree on who wins this one? Because I think North Carolina is able to get the win here. It'll be close. I think Michigan State will play a good game for the most part, but North Carolina is just too talented. When you have R.J. Davis and you have Armando Bacot, you have that talent to pull away. You're just simply a better team than Michigan State is.
Yeah, or Mississippi State for that matter. I think, even if Mississippi State gets there, they don't have enough firepower to deal with those gentlemen you just mentioned. This is not the round that North Carolina dips, right? They've got a good draw to potentially put themselves in a spot to capitalize into a Final Four run. Just because you look at this opponent and the next round opponent, which we'll get to, it's just not an overwhelming squad that they're facing. It's not UConn running into Auburn potentially, anything like that. So North Carolina can kind of roll a little bit, get at least into the Sweet 16. If they don't get into the Sweet 16 this year, ooh, that's a bad look. That's a bad look.
It would be. I mean, obviously, stating the obvious, that would be a bad look for North Carolina. But there's some Carolina fans this year that it's been not disappointing, obviously. He's still got a 1 seed, but they've been wanting more out of this team. They want to see full consistency, and I don't think in their eyes they've seen it yet.
And that's fair. I think for all the star power we mentioned, there are those dips, and I think that will rear its head a little bit later in the tournament where should North Carolina get bounced, it's because they just have one of those off days that we've seen from them a little bit too often this season. So it's not that they're upset proof. Keep that in mind. So if you're looking for any of the 1 seeds, and I can't believe I'm saying this with Purdue, we still got to talk about, but I think North Carolina is the easiest to get in terms of upsetting a 1 seed this year. Not in the first round. I don't think anybody in the first round is losing like we saw in previous years. But once you get past that first round, I think North Carolina is the most likely team to get upset by somebody.
And that will bring us to the team that might be able to do it, St. Mary's or Alabama, the 4-5. This one's a hard one to pick. I mean, Alabama, talk about amazing offense versus the defense of St. Mary's, completely different pace of play for both sides. This is one of those really fun basketball games, though, where you just have completely different opposite ends of what you want to accomplish. Those are always some fantastic games to see.
They are. And I think, to me, the St. Mary's team will have a run reminiscent, maybe not quite, obviously, to the degree, but at least for these first two rounds, similar to what San Diego State ran into. Because San Diego State faced some firepower, obviously, in their run last year, but their defense won today. They were able to get in these mud fights, these rock fights, and win because of it. And I think for Alabama, that's an issue because throughout the season when they have faced teams that can slow them down a bit, they've struggled because their offense is predicated so much on just the explosion, right, of just the quick looks, hey, we're going to just outrun you. I think St. Mary's has enough to keep them contained on that, and because of it, St. Mary's obviously going against a defense of Bama that is at best porous for a power program, especially Bama's ranking, will all of a sudden find a lot easier looks. And if you get the Gales hot, they're going to have the defense to match. I just don't think Bama can keep up.
And that's where I'm at. I think this is the Aiden Mahaney day that I think Gales fans have been waiting for. Give me St. Mary's. The metrics, the analytics, whatever you want to call it, whatever term you have for what a computer believes in, they love St. Mary's in this tournament. They have them beating Alabama. And some of the metrics I've seen, Tyler, of St. Mary's all the way to the Final Four. They think they are that chaos team that can do it with the defense that they have. I'm not saying that happens, but I'm saying some of the bracket polls I've seen have said, hey, St. Mary's, if you want that crazy team, they're the team this year. I don't know how much I believe that, but I think they can at least get to the Sweet 16.
Absolutely. I think it's on the table for sure for the Gales.
And that will move us on to New Mexico and Baylor. And Tyler, you're already giving me the look here. Is this one of the fun runs? Do the Lobos keep on going, or does Baylor shut them down?
I think the Lobos roll, baby. They get that first round win over Clemson, build that confidence. And then Baylor, who, of the Big 12 teams, a little bit inconsistent at times, falls susceptible to a hot New Mexico team, and the Lobos to the Sweet 16 under Patino.
See, I'm the opposite. I think this is where Baylor's defense comes into play. This is when their variety of scoring really works to their advantage. I think New Mexico will give them a great run for their money, but I think you'll be surprised what I believe this Baylor team's capable of. A Baylor team that they're a 3 seed because they have to be a 3 seed. There's so much in front of them. But I think in any other year they could be a 2.
I just don't think they're as tough. See, that's where we disagree because I think they're overrated to a degree. I think they're more along the 4 or 5 seed for me if I'm looking through this tournament. So I just think they're a little overhyped, kind of a middle-of-the-pack Big 12 team, which is good because that's a great conference. I'm not saying it's bad, but I think New Mexico's got the juice to at least get to the next round.
Well, we'll wait and see then, because Arizona taking on either Dayton or the Wolfpack in Nevada, however you see it, which one of us you agree with. I'd like Arizona to beat Dayton. I mean, I think Dayton, we talked about that inconsistency. I think they can have a good enough game to win in the first round. I don't think at this point they can string 2 amazing games together. I have Arizona getting the win and moving on, which, by the way, Arizona, this sets up nicely for them, because if you can keep going, the Final Four is in Phoenix this year. You've got a lot in your favor in terms of location.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm in agreement on Arizona. Even if it's Nevada face them, it didn't matter. I think Arizona, the big issue with them last year was they weren't deep enough. I think they've addressed that to a degree this year. I don't know if they've got enough juice, but at least to get past first couple rounds, I'll take them. They've got a good draw. They'll be moving on to face the Lobos, Cade.
There you go. I mean, it's one of those things. If you think that's funny, you're going to hate me in a few minutes here. North Carolina and St. Mary's, I think North Carolina gets the job done here. I think this is the game for North Carolina that worries me. If they have an off day, if someone is off, whether it be Baycott or Davis, you have to have both of them to beat a healthy St. Mary's team. And St. Mary's is a bit banged up, so that helps North Carolina out there. You know, and if you get some help from like a Cormac Ryan or someone like that who can go off, you can put St. Mary's away. St. Mary's being put away is about a 10-point game. To most teams, it's about 20, But with that pace of play, St. Mary's really doesn't want to go fast. But if you let St. Mary's hang around and you let that slow game continue, North Carolina has experience with this. This is like playing Virginia with a little bit more offense. I think North Carolina, they don't win comfortably. No game with the Gales is, but I think they get the job done and go to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I think they've got enough of the X factors, if you will, to power through in this matchup. St. Mary's just kind of runs a little dry in the end. Like I said, probably puts up a good fight, makes North Carolina earn it, but the Tar Heels at least are able to get moving on to have a crack at a Final Four.
And then we go to Baylor and Arizona. And Tyler, you said it almost perfectly. Baylor's a middle-of-the-pack Big 12 team. Middle of the pack in the best conference in basketball.
Still a pretty good team.
I like Baylor to beat Arizona. I think this is where Caleb Love has an off day. I think Baylor capitalizes on it. Yes, they could still go inside with Balo. They've still got great players. But I like Baylor just a little bit more. Arizona's fixed some of those consistency issues, but I still think they're a little bit snake-bit. They haven't reached an Elite Eight since 2015. I think that drought continues. I like Baylor beating Zona.
You know, these two teams will be conference opponents next year.
They will.
And I think Arizona opens up a can on Baylor and welcomes them properly into what Wildcat basketball is about. Arizona feels like this is the right year for them to make a run, a proper run that people kind of been expecting out of them. Give me the Wildcats. Wound up with a good enough draw. Not that Baylor's a bad team like we talked about, but I think for a 2 seed, this is one of the better lines, if you will, out there where Arizona probably faces the least amount of pressure out of those 2 seeds and is able to capitalize on it.
And this is where we get to that Elite Eight game. I mean, North Carolina, Baylor on my end. For your end, it's Carolina and Arizona. And I'll start with your side. I would probably take Arizona over North Carolina. You know, as crazy as that is, I would probably, the way the matchups work out, I think Arizona would beat North Carolina. You're smiling at me. I think you agree.
Yes. And now you see the vision. You have come around to the vision. That's all I needed to hear. You get where I'm going with this, because when I talked about earlier, North Carolina, some of those consistency issues, raising their ugly head, big spot against Arizona, they don't capitalize on some of those crucial plays. This would be a heck of a ball game, obviously the 1 versus 2 seed in the region. I think Arizona pulls it out. Some relief, if you will, for the Wildcat fan base to at least get to the Final Four. Problem is they're waiting either UConn or Auburn, depending on which bracket you look at. That we'll address later. But for now, the Wildcats have some sweet, sweet victory going into the Final Four on mine.
And then the way I see it with North Carolina and Baylor, you know, I talked about it. I think Arizona is the matchup problem for North Carolina. I think North Carolina is better than Baylor is. I think on your side, I see your vision. In my vision, though, it's Carolina getting back to the Final Four.
So one of us have kind of some redemption for a program, whether it's Arizona, North Carolina. One of them we feel is going to kind of reach that peak or close to it that the fan base has won.
Yeah. And by the way, you know, I do want to talk about Arizona briefly. I did have the opportunity to chat with some of them, went down to the Alamo Bowl this year when they played Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Could not be a nicer fan base. I mean, talking to some of them, they're ready to see that basketball success continue, but they, you know, they have softball, they have basketball. They're excited to see how football's going as well. Just a quick little tidbit about them. Their fan base that you mentioned being in the Big 12 next year, they'll fit right in. They will be a fun fan base to watch. A great team as well. You believe them in a little bit more than I do, but we'll have to see how things continue. Folks, as always, I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to leave a like down below. Leave a comment. Tell us, you know, are we wrong? Are we dumb? Do we know nothing about basketball, or are we actually smart about this? I don't know. This is the viewership, you know, sometimes they decide, and sometimes they're a lot smarter than both of us, and that's a reality we have to deal with. We're just two guys talking into microphones at the end of the day.
We root for chaos. That's
what
we do.
That is true. At the end of the day, that is what we root for. But, folks, I hope you enjoyed the video once again. Feel free to check out our other bracket side breakdowns as well. Go through all the regions and, of course, our predictions for the Final Four and championship as well. But until next time, have a good one, everybody.